I'm Izzy, and I'm a mixed girl in a mixed up world. I'd like to introduce a special guest tonight. His name is Kurt Bertrand. He is from the Black Lives Matter Nashua, New Hampshire. And we're going to have a conversation about what they're doing over there in Nashua, and also any things that he wants to get out there, and just different perspectives that we have going on. So welcome to A Mixed Girl in a Mixed Up World, Kurt. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? You live in Nashua, New Hampshire?
Yeah, so I've been living here for about, excuse the chair, living here for about, I'd say 10 years, 10, 11 years. I used to live in Milford, New Hampshire. So I lived in New Hampshire for most of my life until I moved to Georgia for about 4 years and then came back. So it was Milford, Georgia, and then Nashua.
Nice. Okay. Do you have anything else that you are you working? Do you go to college or anything like that?
So I have a bachelor's in graphic design. I am working as a school photographer right now. So I go to like schools and do the yearbook, pretty much yearbook photos for the teachers and the students. Just trying to make sure they get like a good smile and that they look good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. A little more about me: giant nerd, like video games and animes. I love to learn more about the human perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So from different peoples, different cultures, different religions, I like learning more about the emotional, I guess you could say, emotional spectrum and how we feel things, why we feel things.
Yeah.
But also just like to lay back and generally be merry and like have good laughs and good smiles.
Good. That's good. Smiling is always a good thing. It makes your spirit lighter, especially in this crazy world that we have going on here.
Yes, indeed.
So you kind of answered both my first and second question. Before we get too deep into Black Lives Matter, like your Nashua's Black Lives Matter, I want to kind of us to dispel some of the BS that's out there about, you know, the misconceptions, the myths, the mythology, all the BS that's about Black Lives Matter. Like the ignorant things where people say, oh, Black Lives Matter are terrorists, which we know that is a lie. You know, it's laughable, it's a lie. They, you know, Black Lives Matter hate America. You know, Black Lives Matter hate all cops. Black Lives Matter, you know, want to just burn everything down. And so I'd like kind of get to that, and then I really want to get into, you know, what you guys are doing over there in Nashua.
Okay, so for those that are listening, funny enough, I actually got called a terrorist, and more so indirectly, but practically directly, because I was wearing a Black Lives Matter mask, and I was at a place, and then someone was saying things about my mask, and and then it was kind of funny to like hear that and just be like, man, if you don't be quiet and get a hug, like talking about I'm a terrorist. So that was kind of alarming.
Yeah.
Only to think that like the idea of like someone could think that of me and not know me at all, right? But I also had
just the color of our skin. People think misconception about us because, you know, that we're not white or whatever, that we're angry or we're, you know, we're this or this or this or that. When you don't know me, you don't know how I am. You don't, you know, I'm a good person. I'm not like that. So, you know.
Yes.
You know, so.
Yes, and that also goes towards the media, and then who's been feeding the media and who's been leading the charges on those things and the misconceptions.
Yeah.
And just people's fears and lack of understanding.
Definitely.
So that always doesn't help, especially when like during the rioting, where there are people just like putting BLM as graffiti, but they're not members of
they were people in
BLM.
there.
There were just people there, and that's a lot of times what people would associate the rioting to BML, where they think that just because they're doing this, that means they're a part of it. That doesn't mean you're a part of it, right? There's small, depending on which section, there's a small network of people that are actually a part of it. And the people can be allies or say they're allies, but it doesn't mean you're actually in it, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, I agree. So how did you get involved in Black Lives Matter?
It was mainly, I think for a lot of people, the summer, even with the pandemic, just the George Floyd affected all of us. I know for me personally, that with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, they both look like family members to me, which I think disturbed me the most.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm tired of like this talk. I want to be, I think I said that in like a Facebook status. I was like, I'm tired of talking. I want to be about the action. So I want to apply myself more to making actual change instead of just having only discussions here and there to like actually move forward. So it started with the BLM Manchester, which they shout out to them. They're doing a fantastic job. They started a rally, I believe in the summer, and then I went to join there, and that's where I met Jordan. And then we got into contact and kept having meetings, and then we had meetings with other people signed up for positions, and then kind of just blossomed from there.
Very nice, very nice. If you could express what Black Lives Matter means to you.
I always say that it is not a political statement. And that would also go more along with the myths and other questions, right? It's not a political statement. What it means to me is just saying, hey, I'm here. I've been here. Why is it difficult for people to understand and accept my existence as equal, and to realize that there is not an equal standing here in America.
No.
There has not been for a while. And you can even go way back to like the Constitution. They knew they should stop slavery then. They knew that, but they didn't. They could have stopped it then when they said all men are created equal, but they didn't. And we
weren't even considered men or women, women either. We weren't considered human.
A person.
Yeah.
A person. So when you say all lives matter, it's more of a blanket statement to cover up the idea of just like, oh, well, America has been treating you equal. And it's like, no, clearly it hasn't.
Yeah.
You've seen that for years. With the police brutality, with the three strikes law, cocaine and crack, and even the red line. So even like you talk about like crack cocaine and like how crack and cocaine had different laws, or not different laws, but different, I would say, would it be jail times?
Yeah.
How one would be longer than the other. So even from there's been disproportionate. That's the proper term for it.
Yeah. There isn't equal justice under the law.
There isn't equal. So when you say all lives matter, you're kind of just trying to brush the idea of like there's been wrongdoing in America.
Yeah.
Because Black Lives Matter is just mainly like I matter.
Yep.
Do I? It's not even. it becomes more of a question than a statement. It's not, instead of saying like, I matter, it almost becomes, do I matter?
Yeah.
Which is because in your head, you believe, of course you matter. But then, like I said before about taking action, so instead of just talking, taking action, the ways you act doesn't show that I matter.
Yeah.
So it's all about saying that I matter and showing that and trying to create an equal environment where everyone's at the same starting line point.
Yes, definitely. I look at it, and also people get so in their pockets of, they don't understand that this is about this isn't a, like you said, a political statement.
Yes.
This is real life. Uh this isn't about just like, if you're a Republican or a Democrat. We can't change our skin. I can't zip this off. You can't zip off your skin and be what,
Yeah.
like the Jewish take a shirt off. It's not like that. We're trying to say we equal to all Black Lives Matter too, or also, not. And people think, oh, because it's Black Lives Matter, that it's trying to say Black lives are more important. No, we're saying, hello, we matter too. Black people matter too. And when you
Yes.
say all lives matter, that's a lie, because if all lives matter, we wouldn't have to say Black Lives Matter.
Black lives matter until all lives matter, or all lives matter until Black lives matter.
Yeah.
That's the saying how it goes. And then to go into with the police, right, and going into the myth about they hate the police. The whole idea of having a system that defends us and is there to enforce laws isn't something that people hate. Unless you're an anarchist, and that's just a whole different thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That it's more of the system that has been put into place that is still hindering and in a way to control certain groups of people. That's the part where the fund of police comes from, where they have all this money and it's not being used properly. Because no, of course I don't hate the police, right? The not perfect world, right? Doesn't matter what skin, what color, background. If like I need help, you're there to help me, and my skin color isn't going to change your behavior and how you would handle the situations.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Because we can have two situations where two people are in two suits, making the same amount of money, driving the same car, and have two totally different interactions being pulled over by the police.
And people don't get that, though. People don't get that there's two different ways that, we're not treated like, my friends have never been pulled over by the police and been treated differently. My first time getting pulled over, the cop walked up and started laughing in my face. And at first I was, because I was 17 and I'm like, my mom just said, yeah, you could take the car. And I was like, yeah, you're like, yeah, I get to go out driving. And then I got pulled over right by I was turning in to go to the Salem, New Hampshire Mall. And he pulled me over. And my mom used to be a mail carrier. So this was back in the day when they had when rural carriers drove their own cars. So she had rural stickers, like metal stickers that went on your car, and she had a top that was it looked like almost like a school bus. And he was just, at first I was like startled, because I'm like, why is he laughing at me? And then I realized he's laughing at me because he pulled me over just for the fun of it. He didn't pull me over. And none of my friends, I live in Derry, New Hampshire, so it's like there's not a lot of Black people in Derry, New Hampshire. I mean, there was a few of us, but not a lot. So it was like none of my friends dealt with that. So it was like, I've been lucky that I haven't had anything worse than that. I've had a few interactions with well, I shouldn't say that. I did have an interaction with a cop that was worse than that. But I've been lucky, especially with my mouth, that I haven't had worse interactions with
Ay, caramba.
with the cops. But I mean, people don't understand that it's not, you don't get treated the same way.
And even me getting pulled over, there's a fear, and it runs deep because it's been proven. I won't not say proven, but it's been a definite amount of times where a person of color, especially a black man, who's gotten pulled over where things have gone wrong.
Yeah.
And then, so that is always scary in the back of my head, as opposed to like just normal scares, right? Like I place that fear very high on my list just because I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then it's this fear, right, that is built in police, that's built into the system of how they perceive people of color, and that fear, that unknownness, with this perception of how this group of people gonna act, heightens, sometimes can heighten that fear.
Yeah.
For especially people that don't know how or haven't really interacted with people of color. And then you as a person is afraid because you don't know how they're going to react to you. So now you have this two people who can be afraid
of each other
because it's unknown of how situation is going to happen. Because I've gotten pulled over before where the person was even a person of color, and they're just like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like,
yeah.
I have like anxiety right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how this is gonna end up. And for people to not have that anxiety is a blessing, right?
Definitely.
People would say the word privilege, and I don't want to get into that right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the idea of not being afraid because you don't want to get shot by the cops.
When growing up, when you got a little older enough to understand, what did your family tell you about interacting with police? So like when you became driving age, did you have the talk that most Black kids get?
I don't think I really got that talk. I think it was just more as a given, to be honest. I think it was more because you see it in media and you always kind of, it was just something like everyone just kind of knew. You know, like if you're black, like you didn't have to necessarily have that talk about like how to act around police. It's just more like you know what could happen. So I wouldn't say I necessarily got that talk, but I definitely got that sense by like even before people were driving, like 13, 14, I had that sense of where like I have to act different on cops.
Yeah. Let me see what my next I take my phone down from my thing.
Sorry.
I noticed on your website for the Black Lives Matter Nashua that you guys just started a scholarship program. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the scholarship program was just to help out people. Let me go see on here because I have it up as well. So yeah, so it's pretty much an idea to help black folks, black teens who may not always get the same scholarships as other people do, and it's just more of a way to help facilitate that for younger folks. So on here, if you don't go to the website, right, it pretty much says like you need to be Black, you need to be a senior and going to one of the Nashua schools, and you need to be attending to a 2 to 4 year institution or training program, and $1,000 goes a long way.
Yeah.
Like I went to community college, and that
so did I.
Scholarships help there. Actually, I have another degree I forgot about, associates in liberal arts, and they go into state
liberal arts.
And then going to yeah, and then going to state college is a lot more expensive. So whatever little bit that can help, we want to prove that we want to help the kids, right? The teens, the young teens, because they are the future, right? And it's a cliche thing to say, but it's a true statement, right? Helping them grow will help the world grow. So we want to try to help people that we can, who's been facing, adversity, who's been facing being Black in a predominantly white state, even for like a year or all their life, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a way to show that we care about your education, we care about you as a person, and we want you to succeed. We want you to go further and help how we can.
I think that's incredible that just, helps a kid be able to go to college or helps pay for their books or whatever it can help. And
books are expensive.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
And some kids can't afford any of that, so they feel like they can't go. And when I saw, because I was scrolling through the website the other day, and I was like, oh, that's great that you guys did that. That is incredible. I think I was like, that's really good. What other things do you guys do for the community?
So a lot of donations, volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
We try to help out. Like right now we're doing toy drives and like our whole winter drive. So the main thing that we're trying to do is give back to our community, give back to Nashua.
Mm-hmm.
So that either be like with food, helping with food, buying toys, buying coats, buying laptops if for educational purposes. We're just trying to, I would say, take care of our own.
Yeah.
But not in the sense of take care of only Black people. It's more take care of the whole community.
Yeah, your community.
Yeah, because when you hear that, you take care of your own. You expect, oh, they're only here to just help Black people, and we're definitely here for that. Like,
yeah.
Of course, but like we're not here to just exclude the whole community, right?
Yeah.
And there's some cases where yes, like with the scholarship, it's for African Americans, for people that are Black, because they don't have it as easy, right? So that's where there's some cases where it comes to that, but it's simply like buying toys for kids, for families, right? We just want to show our support to the community. Oh, excuse me. Show the community where we live and how we're putting the money back into them.
That's great. That's awesome. If somebody wants to donate to you guys or check out, where to find more information on you guys, where should they go?
To the website. So you can go to BLMNashua.com. There is a donate page that if you were to just click on it right now, it would go to a PayPal where you can donate to help us out. And like I said, most of the money goes back to the community. We're here to just show support as humans, as people, and trying to give support to people that have not been seen or the media hasn't really choose to see in a positive light at times.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it makes people realize that, it just shows a good light on you guys too, that, that it's not just about protesting and, yelling outside, not yelling, but you know what I mean, like chanting and stuff like that. It's more about getting on the streets and helping your community to make your community better, because when the community is better, everybody succeeds.
So, yeah. Well, we're not on the streets as much because of COVID.
Well, I mean, like the streets, meaning like getting out there to your community. Yeah,
no, I understand.
Hopefully, people aren't on the streets right now, but were you one of the people who went to the march in Washington?
Yes.
How was that?
It was wild. It was all types of colors, all types of people. This sense of normalcy that isn't always allowed in certain places.
Yeah.
Where even though it's a hot day and you have people still being people, like I know I saw one person just like preaching God as like walking out with this little, like a little speaker in a cart. But like at the end of the day, we're all like here for people and here for us.
Yeah.
And like also social distancing, because not trying to get the vid.
Yeah.
But it was a heavy experience because
sure
you got to just see this community of people from all over, right? It's just Florida. I met some people from Florida. I met some people from Connecticut, Las Vegas. There's Colorado. Just like a whole from different outskirts of life.
Yeah.
And like even the way people were dressing, people had different like.
You're muted.
I'm sorry, yeah, phone call. So it was really dope. It was a really hot day, but it was really dope.
Yeah, that's one thing that I wish I could have gone to, but I have some health issues. That's why you've never seen me at any of the marches, because I would definitely be at the marches. I just I can't get out on the streets that much.
Hey, no one's gonna fault you for that.
Yeah, we had in Derry we had a rally, and we also had a candlelight vigil, which ended up being really, really small. But the rally actually was really nice, and I went and spoke at that, and I actually spoke at both. So I enjoy doing that because I can't do the walking, and but it's also just getting there and stuff like that too. I never know how I'm gonna feel, so that's why I decided to do this, because I can't be out doing. Obviously, right now there's a pandemic, so nobody's out there doing much. But I can't be out there doing the stuff that you guys are doing. But I wanted to find a way to get different voices out there to maybe change minds, even if it's just one at a time. I know that's a small amount, but if your experience or somebody hearing my experience or hearing somebody else's experience can click in somebody's head that, wow, what I used to think was ignorant, or wow, he makes a lot of sense, that I felt like that maybe I can change a little bit, do a little bit of something. I'm not doing what you guys are doing, but I'm trying to make a little bit of change if I can.
No, and even if one person, and let's say you've been on this show, doing this show for like 7 years or whatever, so even one person changing their mind and growing from that is an incredible experience. So don't be worried about the numbers.
Oh, right? I'm not. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm gonna try to grow as much as I can, but like I said, if I can change one person at a time, I'll be happy with that. And I enjoy talking to different people, and I like learning people's experiences, because we both grew up in New Hampshire. I've lived in Derry for 44 years, and my experience is probably different from your experience, but it's good to hear how things were for different people, and it opens people's minds. And also, like, something I say might catch in your head, be like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Or, speaking of that, what was your experience of growing up in New Hampshire?
That's a good question. Also, I would have said that you were like 30, like straight up.
No, I'm 46.
You don't look like it at all, miss.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So my experience has been it's been trying to find understanding within myself and trying to understand the things of my environment. So when you grow up in a particularly Black area, there's certain generalizations that comes from that and that are put upon you because you are that representation for your race. And there isn't a shared experience for you as it would be for other people.
Yes.
So having that lack of shared experience and having the weight of this perception of how this race is, it was heavy. Excuse me, because it was heavy at the point where I wouldn't know that was the crown that was on my head, but it was always there, no matter how heavy or light it may have seemed, because I'm still trying to figure myself out, right? Because I was living in Milford practically since I was born. I wasn't born in Milford, but practically since there to like being 14. So it was practically elementary, like preschool, pre-K, elementary to middle school is when I was in Milford. So having that area of development where there's a lack of culture there.
Yeah, definitely.
So that also affected my development and the understanding of who I am was affected by that because like I said, I'm a kid. I'm trying to understand what I like, what I don't like, what I want to eat, what I don't want to eat. Shows, and then even with like once again, I talk about anime. I kind of sound like an old head where I'm just like, y'all kids don't even know how good you got it now because like it's more widely accepted as opposed to being just like this like weird Black kid who like still like cartoons and just like trying to just navigate what I wanted to listen to, what music I would like, and how people would perceive me and trying to understand if I wanted to be perceived in that kind of light or what I just want perceived in just how I am.
Going along with that, like I have a question to ask you. Because I grew up in New Hampshire. I was born in Lynn, Massachusetts, moved up here when I was 2. And, I'm mixed. So my mom's white, my dad's Black. And I was one of the few Black kids who went to my school. And I did have a couple good friends that were Black, but we all had the same problem. Did you hear a lot because you grew up in New Hampshire? Because we're a product of our environment. So did you hear, oh, you sound white? Did you hear that?
Of course, yeah. And then being called an Oreo.
Yes.
And how at a certain point, I kind of just went along with it and kind of wore it as like, I think a pride. I think when MySpace was a thing. If you remember old MySpace, I had part of my username was like Oreo or something, because like I didn't really understand what it meant when I was younger, but I just went along with it. And then like even in Georgia, the going to Georgia, which was obviously a culture shock, because literally the opposite being flipped upon you.
Yeah. Definitely the opposite of New Hampshire.
And I was at the time when I was living there where the South was coming back with music. So the South was also like growing notoriety within mainstream hip hop.
Yeah.
So that, because like they knew that rocked with it, Laffy Taffy, you got Young Jeezy with like Soul Survivor featuring Akon, you had T-Pain, you had always Lil Wayne, but that was when like the area that time where like the Carter 2 came out, and then like a few years later the Carter 3, which pretty much was like obviously like the top album of that year. Like the South was gaining notoriety, and I was learning things about Black culture down there as well, the good and the bad, and I was experiencing all that. But even some of the kids would say I talked white. And then I was at a grocery store once, and this woman, the complete shock she had of just like hearing the way I talked, and like it just was just like, oh my god! Like she didn't say it, but her face like said it, and it was just like, well, okay, just like, yeah. So those are like small moments where you just like, why does this have to be such like a shocking thing?
Yeah, because I got like my friend, one of my best friends, she grew up in Lynn and she's white. And when we were on the phone, like a conference call phone, people would think she was Black and I was white. And I'm like, well, I grew up in New Hampshire. How am I supposed to sound? This is what we sound like up here. I was like, that's why. So that's kind of, it's kind of cool that not cool, but that you had that same experience.
Shared experience.
Yeah, shared experience. What do you guys have planned for what's on your agenda for Black Lives Matter Nashua? Like what do you guys want to accomplish in 2021?
The same thing we'll be doing for right now is continue bringing the money back into the community, donating, trying to help people that need help. Obviously, COVID is affecting a lot of things that we would normally do within like a normal year.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of trying to figure out what to do within that time, within this kind of space that's totally different, but we're still going to keep moving. We're still going to keep pushing to try to not only support, but also to give people opportunities to learn. So that will be probably through like online outlets. But,
that's good.
we're not going to stop,
Yeah. It's not a moment, it's a movement, as they said in Hamilton, it's not a moment, it's a movement. So what do you think New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire government needs to do to make it better for the Black community?
Accountability. I think there's always been a lack of accountability within all these things of how people have been treated. I've been listening to a podcast about it's called Nice White Parents, and if you ever seen, what is it, Serial? Listen to that podcast, Serial. It's on there and it's on its own separate thing, but it's about the New York education and how, I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but it's a lot of people being like, yeah, let's have like integration and like non-segregation of these schools, and like we're all for it, and then none of them do it. And then the problem keeps getting passed down to like mayors, different boards, and no one ever takes accountability for it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most main things for all aspects, not just like the mayor or the governor. It's just take accountability, recognize what's been done, recognize what's happened,
and what needs to change.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be. There's a lot of things with this idea of like white guilt. You don't need to necessarily feel guilty about it, but you do need to recognize what has happened and how it changed lives. Bill Clinton even was like the 3 strikes things was a horrible idea. So it's just, it's not even like we need you to feel sorry. We just need you to like stand up, take responsibility. So what I would want from our governor is take responsibility for things that are happening and acting in a reasonable time.
Yeah. You just said something about white guilt. Not white guilt, but what do you think someone who is white and wants to be an ally, what is your advice to them? I know that's a big question because there's a lot to go into it, but a condensed version?
I don't need you to feel sorry for me. I need you to understand what has been happening and to move forward with us and to not only grow, but not only grow as a person, like not only grow as yourself and gain knowledge to not become ignorant, but also to spread that and talk to people, because it's all about spreading that knowledge and not also attacking people.
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
Where people will be like, let's throw hands if you don't agree with me. And it's like that's not helping.
Yeah.
You can't fight your grandma. Like that's not.
Yeah, unfollowing her is not helping.
So it's about taking the time to talk with people that you don't agree with. And even if you get to a point where y'all both aren't going to change each other's minds, at least you had a conversation with them that was cordial, where they can also go back to like, hey, when I have this discussion, I'm not going to have this negative connotation that every time I have this is going to be like a show out fight, right? So it's about growing yourself, growing as a person, not being attackful, but knowing when to stand up for people. That's also an important thing. But don't just attack.
Yeah.
No, but like if you want to stand up for someone, do that, but know how to do it right.
Yeah. I also think that goes along with that. Stand up when we're not around. So if your cousin is saying something ignorant, you don't have to get into a fist fight with your cousin.
Of course.
Say, hey, that's not cool, and this is why it's not cool, and educate them. Because if we're not there, we don't know what's going on. We don't know that your friends are making racial jokes. We don't know that, but you know that. And if you stand there and you just laugh along with them, or you don't even say anything, your silence says everything. But if you can say something and tell them that it's wrong, it goes a long way.
And exactly. And then if anything, just try to reach to the empathy, right? Try to bring it into how you would feel if these things were happening to you, and reaching the human element, I think is one of the most important things, because at the end of the day, everyone wants to feel appreciated, everyone wants to feel loved, everyone wants to feel seen.
Definitely.
And I think when people have a lack of that, and they may not believe that they have a lack of that, right? But they could truly have a lack of that, and that could generate things within themselves that can become negative. Yeah. So it's about reaching the heart, right? The heart and the mind.
Yep.
And then reaching those two would then reach the soul.
Yep.
And trying to change the overall person towards things.
Definitely. I fully agree with that. Before we head out tonight, if you could tell your younger self one thing about what you've learned over the summer with everything that happened, like, I mean, because we got Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, like boom, 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 boom. And if you could tell your younger self something, what would it be? I know that's a tough one.
I think, fortunately, I would have to put more weight upon myself, and then just to educate myself. Just like, you need to look towards these things and see what's around you. And I had the internet back then,
Yeah.
And by the time, I was like 10, 11, 12, there was broadband.
Yep.
So the information's there. It's just asking for help to try to find it, trying to learn about it, so that, I gotta say, learn about your blackness and learn to spread it positively. Learn about your blackness.
I agree with that, especially because growing up in an area like New Hampshire, they didn't teach enough. I mean, in the school system alone, they don't teach enough about
yeah,
the good and the bad of what's gone on in this country.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard when you grow up in a state like New Hampshire where you don't learn unless you go out and seek it. You don't really learn. Now, if you want to learn a little bit about slavery, you'll get a little bit about slavery, and you get a little bit about MLK, but that's about it.
You remember the turnarounds? When they like talk about slavery and everyone just like turned towards you? You're just like, I remember one time I purposely looked angry because I knew kids were looking at me. And it was like, I was like, grrr.
I just understand what he's talking about. Whenever it was slavery week, and usually, I don't know about your school, but mostly it was like a week or two, if that. And whenever they said, we're going to talk about slavery, everybody would turn and stare at you. Like, because you're the black representative. They got to turn and look at you. It's like, come on, man.
That's kind of funny, though. Just like looking back and being like, I'm angry. Slavery. They're just like, they're like, yeah, angry. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So yeah, just learn about your blackness, embrace it, and then spread it out. But don't be like a hotep.
Yeah.
don't do that. Don't be that.
Yeah.
And if anyone's listening and they don't know where it is, it's HOTEP. Look it up on YouTube. Don't be that. Don't do that.
Well, I really, really appreciate you doing this, Kurt. I would love to have you come back on and
no doubt
more of what you guys are doing over there. It's been a great conversation. And like I said, my goal here is to talk to as many people as I can and educate as many people as I can and grow this so more people can be educated on, different perspectives, like kind of like what we said. Our perspective, you and I can sit here and chuckle because we know what that looks like.
Experience.
Because we grew up in New Hampshire being black, and somebody living in Boston would be like, what are you talking about? So.
But even then, there's still Boston, Massachusetts, still predominantly white.
Yeah,
there's been a whole bunch of racism in Boston.
Boston is a whole different bag of racism.
So that's even then. But yeah, different experiences, but also trying to find the shared experiences.
So yeah, I want to share my experience and other people's experiences so people can see that it isn't just one person saying things are a certain way, that they understand that yes, you and I have had different experiences, but we as the Black community, we all have shared experiences of some negative and some very positive. And I want as many voices to get out there as I can put out there. So I really, really appreciate you coming on tonight and talking to me. Thank you so, so much.
Once again, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And like I said, I would love to have you back again. Thank you.
Right.
I'm Izzy, and I'm a mixed girl, and this is I can't even talk tonight. Sorry. I'm Izzy, a mixed girl in a mixed up world. Thank you again, Kurt. Have a great night.
Ciao.
Bye.